We, here at Congregational UCC, hope that these upcoming messages of kindness, respect, love, and peace resonates with you. Now, this week's sacred reading and sermon.
This is Luke 6:17-26 from the Common English Bible. Jesus came down from the mountain with them and stood on a large area of level ground. A great company of his disciples and a huge crowd of people from all around Judea and Jerusalem and the area around Tyre and Sidon joined him there. They came to hear him and to be healed from their diseases, and those bothered by unclean spirits were healed. The whole crowd wanted to touch him because power was going out from him and he was healing everyone. Jesus raised his eyes to his disciples and said, "Happy are you who are poor, because God's kingdom is yours. Happy are you who hunger now, because you will be satisfied. Happy are you who weep now, because you will laugh. Happy are you when people hate you, reject you, insult you, and condemn your name as evil because of the human one. Rejoice when that happens. Leap for joy because you have a great reward in heaven. Their ancestors did the same things to the prophets. But how terrible for you who are rich, because you have already received your comfort. How terrible for you who have plenty now, because you will be hungry. How terrible for you who laugh now, because you will mourn and weep. How terrible for you when all speak well of you. Their ancestors did the same things to the false prophets."
I'm going to borrow that, Jane. Steal it is what I'm actually going to do. Thank you.
All righty, there you go.
So, having to preach after Jane talking, you don't make my job easy. But I will start with that. I'm not being recorded today, or I am. I'm still going to say what I'm going to say. So, moment of personal privilege. When we received your email, Jane, talking about the change in your condition, Greg can attest to this the best. I was pissed.
Me too.
I don't often yell directly at God, but I did. Because sometimes you just get tired of that. So, but we turned our anger into love, which is what we do, isn't it? That is what we do. So, that leads us to today's Beatitudes from Luke that you read. Now, what other book are we more familiar with the Beatitudes from? Matthew. Matthews are a bit kinder, yeah? Right. Luke, he gives you some kindness and then he smacks you at the end. He says, "Blessed are you who this, blessed are you who are this." And then, by the way, those of you who are this, this, and this, tough for you, right? So, I was reading something interesting this week. When it gets to we use the Common English Bible a lot of the times for our translation, just because I like it better. And it doesn't sound as, I don't know, old or mean. But it says, when it gets to what is known as the woes, woe are you who, it says, how terrible for you who. But think of the woes for a moment. Woe are you who have plenty now, because you will be hungry. Is that a positive thing? Is that a negative thing? Or do you think that's a warning to not take things for granted?
Warning.
Yeah, that's what I think too. How woe for you who are rich, because you've already received your comfort. That comfort can be removed immediately, can't it? But happy are you who are poor, because God's kingdom is yours. Finish this sentence for me. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the Jenny wins, children of God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. That's us, folks. That's what this is all about. I was reading how a lot of pastors do not like to preach about the Beatitudes. I can see why. Some are warm and fuzzy. Some seem a bit unrealistic. Where was Jesus talking during this time, where he's saying all these wonderful things or not so wonderful things?
Down from a mountain, so he was down.
Yes, exactly, Connie. So he had just given the Sermon on the Mount, and now he was down from the mountain. So they call this the Sermon on the Plain. And so he's talking to these crowds of people. Where was he last week? Do you remember? Where was he preaching from? A boat. A boat. Why did he have to go out onto that boat?
Too many people.
Too many people. Too many people. And he was inspiring these fishermen to, follow him. Following is an interesting thing because it requires you to put your complete trust in someone to lead you the right way. In our faith, which, as we all know, has many different facets, there are plenty who blindly follow, right? Any of you who take me directly for anything that I say up here as gospel, please examine your heads. Please. Some pastors wouldn't tell you that. But our faith means that we need to be free thinkers. We need to take this book, examine it, put it to current cultural context, but also put it to the cultural context of that time and really determine what it meant. Take out the man-made translations and actually study it from a scholarly point of view. So I ask you this week, what part of the Beatitudes from the Gospel of Luke do you more recognize as part of yourself? God, when I said earlier that I was yelling at you, I was just kidding. Whatever. Which do you recognize more as being part of who you are today? Not who you'd like to be, not who you think you want to present yourself as, but do you feel that you are on the blessed is me because I am this, or maybe you're on the warning side where be careful because don't get too complacent in where you are. There are others who don't feel like you. Beth.
I think both are really important to me and my worldview. And I think in recognizing my privilege, I try to work to push against it in the other direction, to try and bring other people, elevate them in any way I can.
Thank you. Who else? What are you feeling when you hear these? Bob.
I think for me, I always have problems with the blessed are the peacemakers, because I always think I'm trying to make it too peaceful, and every now and then I struggle between when should I shout out and say this is wrong, and when should I actually bring people together. And, I struggle with that all the time. So it's like, when do you just try to tone it down, and when do you say that's wrong? You know, that kind of stuff.
Right, because isn't that our general tendency as just adult humans? Who really likes conflict, right? None of us. So isn't it more integral to who we are and our genetic makeup that we would try to smooth things over and bring peace rather than shake things up and say that's wrong? Right? Jenny.
But peace is an active thing. I'm thinking of a children's book I have, and it says peace is. And one of the things is peace is everyone having enough. That's not glossing over. That's calling to be active. So it's peace is, everybody. It's not everybody never saying anything. It's about the things that we would. I think peace is a wimpy word, the way it gets interpreted.
Yeah.
Just like love and all those things. It can be. It's an action word, and it's not about. Anyway, that always stuck with me. We did a whole Bible school on that about people having enough, about caring for each other.
Right.
And that has some meat in it. It's not just about being quiet and not.
It is an action word.
Yeah.
There's a wise woman in this congregation who also considers herself to be my grandmother, who one of my first sermons she heard me give told me, waited in my office after the service because she had something to tell me about my sermon. And she wisely told me that I used the wrong word during that sermon. I kept using the word peace, and the word I was looking for was not peace, it was harmony. There is a difference, isn't there?
Right.
There's a big difference, and she's right, because peace was an action word. Harmony was the one I was going after. I just got my phone because, I can't do things justice if I don't read them correctly. So while sitting in line at Starbucks this morning, I got very moved by something that John Dorhauer, our general minister and president, wrote this morning. He was commenting on a New York Times article today that is titled, "It is not a closet, it is a cage. Gay Catholic priests speak out." I wonder why this might have moved me. John says, and I knew that he had been in Catholic seminary before, I did not know this long. He says, "I spent 8 years in the Catholic seminary. I was one of the young boys this article refers to when it talks about the Catholic Church recruiting young men to seminary right out of grade school. I witnessed a witch hunt in my own seminary when a number of classmates just didn't return to school after the Christmas break. When I learned later that it was because they were suspected to be gay, something jarred loose inside of me. One of them, who just didn't come back, was my best friend who came out to me in our freshman year of high school. I was so hurt by this. I was devastated. That witch hunt became one of the turning points that would have me leave seminary 2 years later. I still felt a real call to the priesthood. It just became too hard for me to take ordination vows in a church whose teachings and theologies were so far afield from my own. I could not take a vow of obedience with any kind of integrity, a vow that would require me to teach people to believe things that I did not believe. My heart goes out to all of the gay men currently serving faithfully in that church. I pray for them and for any articulation of the church that continues to teach that there is something inherently wrong with being who you are. I am so proud to be a part of a communion that teaches that no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. We teach that not in spite of what we read in our sacred texts, but because of what we read there. The discovery of the United Church of Christ is what led me back to my call to ministry, and I will be forever grateful for those who came before me and gave shape to this articulation of the faith. Why do I tell you that this morning? Not just because it moved me, because I did sit crying in the Starbucks line like an idiot, but I tell you this because it ties directly to what I'm talking about. We grow up hearing these wonderful stories about Matthew's Beatitudes. Then we are struck with a little reality check from Luke's version of the Beatitudes. We know how we worship. We also, many of us, know how others worship. And we know that they're different. And to them, we're different. And you know what? That's how it's supposed to be. Our faith is our own. It is our own journey. It is our own destiny. It is our own choosing to connect in the way that we do. The woe portion of these Beatitudes is the part that I actually like best. I don't think it's harsh. I don't think of it as on either end that these are broken spirits, as they say, or broken souls. They're shattered by life's realities. It's how we appreciate then what we do have, and keeping that faith that is all of ours, and that love that is freely given to us. And what we do with that makes all the difference. We can turn anger from life's downturns to losses of loved ones, changes in our work, our lives, our relationships, friendships. We can take those woes and turn them into blessed are we who. We can make that choice. It is not easy. It doesn't happen overnight. but it can happen. That, my friends, I believe, is central to who we are as people of faith who truck along, get smacked in the face every now and then, and make this world and ourselves better, right? Bob.
What I like about John, I always pronounce his last name wrong.
Dorhauer.
Is what I was saying before, is like getting off of real safe, not making any statement at all. But then he says what's wrong, but then he also tells you what's right. So it's like he doesn't leave you in a vacuum after he says
Right.
this is wrong. He said he wants to be in a place where it's welcome.
Right.
So he doesn't leave you. You know, I think I should have finished my other statement about say what's wrong, but it's also you want to know what's right also.
Yes. That there is a psychologist friend of mine who always shaped things that same way. She would say about anything, all right, well, what is right about this? Nothing. That's why I'm talking to you. No, but she was right. What's right about this? What's right about this? Lori.
I have a friend who uses the word peace as an action word all the time. She posted this last night on Facebook. She was at the airport flying to meet her wife, and their adopted son, who is African American, was not quite happy waiting for the plane. You know, and this is nappy, hadn't eaten right. So he's a little fussy.
Sounds like me.
So Daria said that next to her in the waiting area there at the airport was a middle-aged African-American woman who turned to Daria and said, "Is the boy sad because you're taking him away from his mother?" And Daria, being the peace person that she is, turned to the lady and said, "No, I am his mother." And then the lady in the process gave her son some candy to keep him quiet. And the comments, you know, from being, I would have said this, to, you know, Daria is the peacemaker. She always has been. She is the one that you would always see wearing a princess crown, because she's like, that's her, you know, she's a minister. She used to preach down, or had for David's church down near Columbus. She was down there for a while. But of all the things, you know, being a gay mom and having an African-American son, she gets it all the time. And I've never heard her say anything bad. I mean, she is peace all the time. All the time.
That's a gift.
She has it out
That is a gift. I wish I could possess. What else are you feeling?
Try to keep this short. I think one of the things that I increasingly am dealing with is knowing, and it's not any surprise, because it's been true most of my life, that I almost always necessarily reflect the minority view. And this is because so much of my work is infused and reflected in both faith and science. And I have to harmonize those, but also live with the discord. And that blending also means that I am constantly being reminded and moved to talk about how so much of what we label political and economic is now moral.
Mm-hmm.
And that morality, and although it's moral, it is also informed by the science.
Right.
So, for example, some of my former climate science colleagues a couple years ago ran a computer model, and determined that the three biggest factors that would lead to the collapse of our existing civilization are climate change, capitalism, and the existence of billionaires.
Pretty spot on.
So, nobody wants to hear that we have to address capitalism, that it is literally killing the planet. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that wealth disparity is a big piece of that, and nobody's willing to deal with climate change yet. And yet, those are the things that, to me, those are moral issues that are informed by the science that I cannot not speak about.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you. And it has to be so eternally frustrating to always feel like you're in the minority view and trying to preach up. Right? Oh.
But all of that sort of speaks to the scripture.
Yeah? 100%. 100%. You feeling something, Dar? She looked like she was ready to. So friends, let's take this moment to reflect on two things. There's a beatitude up here in a row of pink ladies. They didn't, I don't think, coordinate this. It just worked. But let's take a moment and reflect.
You shall not pass.
That is a way to keep me up front, right? I mean, Gary planned this so that I couldn't come back there anymore. Let's reflect on this for a moment. Throughout this week, I want you to think of this. Maybe take a moment each day and say, blessed am I because, and then you fill in the blank, and woe are we who, and you fill in that blank. And you see how those two start to work together as the week goes on. You see how they cannot go without the other. And recognize that we are blessed. We are the children of God. We are given that love, that unconditional love, no matter who we are. Amen.
Amen.